And we're live. Hello, everyone out there in internet land. This is episode 104 of Learning Space, a bi-monthly hangout brought to you by cosmoquest.org, which is your place to get engaged in doing science. And this particular hangout on air is dedicated to helping you learn all the cool ways that you can get your students, your kids, completely addicted to astronomy, because we're all about addicting people to science. My name is Dr. Pamela Gay. I co-host this with Georgia Bracey, who is my colleague in crime at CosmoQuest. And this week we have a special guest with us, Rob Sparks, who is an astronomer at the National Optical Astronomy Observatory, where he works on amazing projects like the Galileo Scope, hands-on optics, and a bunch of other educational programs. And you had what may have been one of the most coveted invitations a few weeks ago. Could you tell our audience a little bit about what you did, Rob?
Yes. A couple weeks ago, I got to attend the second White House Astronomy Night. And for those wondering, yes, that does take place at the White House. So we had telescopes and astronomy demonstration set from the National Science Foundation, which includes the National Optical Astronomy Observatory, NASA, Lunar Planetary Institute, SpaceX had an exhibit, Oculus Rift was there, and I'm probably forgetting someone, and I apologize for whatever organization that is.
Vivian White, Astronomical Society of the Pacific.
Wow. And Derek Fitz from the Franklin Institute, that's another one, so he was also there.
And the last time this occurred was still with Obama, back in 2009 during the International Year of Astronomy. And that one was super secret and like came out of nowhere. And suddenly people got phone calls, including your boss, to, hey, show up at the White House and we're going to astronomy. This time they turned it into a national celebration. Can you tell us a little bit about what all it was about and what all happened?
Okay, well, yeah, it's about basically a celebration of science and technology, STEM fields, of course. And they put out the press release, I think, about a month and a half ago, sometime in September they put it out. And they were not only hosting Astronomy Night at the White House, they were also encouraging amateur astronomy clubs as well as schools around the country to host their own astronomy events in conjunction with the White House. And I want to say there was somewhere pushing 100 events on the list by the time it was started. I think it was a little under 100 around the country that were listed on their official site. Of course, there may have been more that not everyone registered with, but I don't know what the exact final count was, but I want to say a little less than 100. So at the actual event itself, they had of course, it started with Obama giving his speech there with lots of dignitaries around. There were Charlie Bolden, head of NASA, was there. NASA Administrator John Grunsfeld was there, Mae Jemison, several other astronauts were there, as well as the Mythbusters. Bill Nye put an appearance as well later that night, so there's a lot of people. Bill Nelson, senator from Florida, who was also an astronaut and spaceman years ago, was also one of the dignitaries there, so there's a good number of people, dignitaries there. Obama gave a short speech, started approximately, the event said start at 7, I think his speech was closer to 7:30 when it actually started. He gave a nice little 10-minute speech, 15-minute speech, which was very nice. And then basically we adjourned to the telescopes and all the exhibit tables after that. So like I said, NASA and us and LPL and a few other people had exhibit tables there as well after that. And I had my telescope set up down by the fountain on the South Lawn, which was a very nice location.
And it wasn't just the Obamas that visited all of your exhibit booths, and of course the Secret Service that go with them. There was actually a bunch of people who were let in. Can you tell us a little bit about who was invited to tour your exhibits?
Yes, there were about 200 students there from various schools around the D.C. area. There was also a group that Suann Heatherly brought in that won a competition, I guess, from the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. Suann Heatherly brought in as well. So we're local students as well as at the event. I can't tell you the school names. I didn't get a list of them.
No, that's completely fine. And in fact, Georgia and I also, I have to admit, I ended up having family obligations, but Georgia was part of hosting an event at one of our local schools here in Edwardsville. And this truly was a national event where people were looking to get engaged. And what was it like at the school that you were at, Georgia?
We had a nice little group there. I think our It was great that it was at a school, but of course we had a lighting issue. So although we had beautiful weather, and I was going to ask Rob about the weather there too, because I think it was pretty nice from what I was seeing. But we had lovely clear skies, but we had some not so lovely big parking lot lights. But we still, and it always amazes me, we still managed to see a lot of amazing things. And the people that stopped by were so impressed. And, they would be oohing and eyeing through the telescope, and I'm thinking, oh, but, if we didn't have these lights, can you only imagine what else you could see? Oops, here's one, excuse me, little cat removal right here. So that was the only downside. Otherwise, it was a great place because we had the whole parking lot and back of the school to ourselves. We had the local astronomy club there, and they had tables with NASA Night Sky Network activities going for the kids, and we had a great night. Couple hours.
Oh, and we seem to be having some video problems with Georgia. But they did have a good turnout. They were there for a couple of hours, and this was just one of those moments that we took advantage of to create a teachable moment for astronomy all across the United States. And star parties are really starting to become global moments of celebrating the fact that we have one people sharing a planet that all get to see the exact same sky. This is part of the idea behind Astronomers Without Borders, another organization that hosts a myriad of star parties around the globe on a regular basis. And hosting star parties is a large part of what you do, Rob, and you actually have got to be part of a project that has really helped make star parties possible to people who may not have been able to afford telescopes in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about the Galileo scope and the power of star parties that you've seen over the years?
Oh yeah, well, first of all, the White House was very specific. It was an astronomy night, not a star party.
That's true.
And there's actually, we found out with some other organizations as well that they want to call them things other than star parties because party implies dancing, possible drinking, and so some schools are sort of shying away from star parties for that reason, if you can believe that. So call them astronomy nights, stargazing events, that sort of thing. But even the White House said it's an astronomy night. But yeah, anyway, the Galileo scope, getting on to the Galileo scope here, was created in 2009 for the International Year of Astronomy, like you said. And it was an attempt to create a small telescope about the same size and magnification as Galileo's telescope, but with modern optics. Because as some of you might know, Galileo's telescope, although great for its day, by modern standards was not that good. It had a very narrow field of view. That means it looked at a very small piece of the sky at one time, an area of the sky less than the diameter of the full moon, which made it very frustrating to use. It had a lot of chromatic aberration, so you had a lot of color fringing and that sort of thing on the image.
And color fringing means that, like, if you look at Saturn, you see a red version shifted one way, a blue version shifted the other way, and it's kind of white and smeary in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. So you get all these weird color fringes due to the fact that different wavelengths of light are bent differently by lenses. But the Galileo scope, we have much better design now, so we're able to make a telescope about the same size magnification, but with better optics, so we have a much wider field of view, about 1.5 degrees, which is about 3 times the diameter of the full moon, and also allowed the color fringing, so we used a double lens, achromatic lens for the objective. And this, of course I have one with me right here. You always have the visual aid with you. This is what the finished product looks like, and it comes as a kit. It comes disassembled, so students can put it together themselves, and it's also equally easy to take apart. You just start that. Now I'm dropping pieces already. Just sort of take off the large end there, and you can sort of take everything apart and put it back together as many times as you like. I'm dropping things apart here. The good thing about it is it's durable as well. You can drop it and it will actually survive drops fairly well. But I'm going to bring this down a little bit so you can see a little bit better here. This is actually the objective lens, which I mentioned before, which you hopefully can see. If you look closely, you might notice it's actually 2 lenses glued together. So it actually has that nice achromatic design, and here's the other half of the tubes. They're literally clamshell designs. You just sort of put them together. My Focuser tube though, so I have to pick that up. Focuser tube is also a clamshell design, so you have to put it together as well. And it's really, I can build this scope probably I have done it in under 5 minutes for sure. Not sure if I've ever done it under 3. I've definitely done under 5 minutes to put a scope together from box to here. We've got over 200,000 of these out in the wild now, so to speak. And for the International Year of Light, the Edelman Financial Group donated 10,000 Galileo scopes for use in schools around the country, free to teachers. Teachers had to sign up to get a box shipped to them back in June, and teachers had to pay for shipping, but the scopes were free. They're normally a box of 6 for $150, so they got 6 telescopes for about $15 to $20, depending on where they lived in the country, what shipping costs were. And those scopes were all claimed in less than 48 hours, so there was definitely a high demand for them back then.
And what's really amazing about this program is it's still going on. It's still helping people get telescopes, and there are still ways that you can get involved. And I'm about to screen share with you a project that Rob and I have both been part of, and that's the Telescopes for Teachers program.
Yes.
It allows you to say, I want to help my local school be part of getting telescopes. And so you can either make a donation to the general fund. We have a goal of trying to raise $18,000. We started this July 1, 2015. As you can see, we haven't really made a lot of progress. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to generically donate money to buy telescopes. But the other way that people do regularly donate is you can donate to a specific school. You can say, I want to donate $50 to get 1 kit to my school. I want to donate $200 to get 6 kits to my school. And you can go in and you can work with a bunch of other people and raise this money, and it's all completely tax deductible in the United States through Astrosphere New Media, which, in the name of full disclosure, I am the unpaid executive director of this nonprofit. But this is a way for you to help kids get telescopes and get their own opportunity to go out and look up. And this is a really well-engineered telescope. If I remember correctly, some of the scientists that worked on this are some of the ones that also worked on Hubble.
I believe there were a couple that worked on Hubble that also worked on this. I can't remember names off the top of my head. But I think you're right on that, yeah.
And Georgia and I have certainly put together our fair share of them, and I have to admit, I inadvertently dropped one down a set of stairs, and pieces went in all directions, and nothing broke. Nothing broke.
Way longer than 5 minutes, too,
yeah.
I have to say that.
I've always said I'm going to build one blindfolded someday just to try it.
There you go. All right. I can see
if I can figure out how to share my screen
this
here.
kind of thing.
Let's see if I can do this properly here. I'm going to try a screen share here because I just called up a picture of, there we go. Yes, I can do this, I think.
You're going to need to click the present to everyone button at the top.
Yeah, my mouse is off this. My mouse will not come. There my mouse goes.
Okay.
So let's see if I can pull this off here.
Georgia has a cat. It's probably good at finding that mouse.
Did my picture come up?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this is a picture of Saturn taken through the Galileo scope. I took this, literally one of the first Galileo scopes I put together off the production line back in 2009. I took home, put it together, and took this picture through a Galileo scope with a cheap, $80 or $90 whatever digital camera that you get at Best Buy or Walmart or whatever at the time, just by holding up the eyepiece and clicking. And that was what Saturn came out. You can see the rings are almost edge-on back then, and you remember we had a ring plane crossing in 2009. So it looks even better now, but I have to go out and take another try and get a better picture of it now. But that's the first picture I took of Saturn with the Galileo scope back many years ago.
Awesome.
And I have better cameras now, too, so I probably could do that as well.
Well, it's amazing to me how many people just use their cell phones now and go up to telescopes. Even at our astronomy night that we had, some of the amateur astronomers were saying, hey, I've got Saturn. Anybody got a cell phone? You want to come over and try to take a picture through the scope? And, it's not too bad. They turn out pretty well.
At the White House Star Party, we bought a bunch of the little iOptron cell phone adapters. If you ever used these guys, they're very nice. Yeah. They will attach your cell phone, not just iPhones, they're adjustable, so they'll fit even my Galaxy S3, so they fit fairly large, or Galaxy Note 3, excuse me. Get the Note 3, which is a fairly large phone. And the thing I like about them is the way they work is you actually can put the phone on and line them, the eyepiece sort of screws into the adapter, So you sort of put the, I wish I had one with me. I don't know at work though, but you sort of put the phone in there and you sort of line up the eyepiece, the lens hole with the eyepiece. Then you screw the eyepiece into the bottom of the thing, just plop it into your telescope. So that way you line up the eyepiece with the cell phone with the eyepiece before you put it on the telescope, so you're not sitting there with someone trying to do that while people are waiting.
Yeah.
And we actually had 6 of them at the White House, so we could have, one person putting the eyepiece on while the one person taking a picture and just sort of assembly line people through.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we have a question coming in from Patrick Festa, who asks, how much is that scope for the individual? Now, if you go to galileoscope.org, which is the website of the designers, you can only buy them in bulk. But to get them individually, a lot of science centers and a few other places sell them, and we listed the vendors off of the galileoscope.org website, and they're typically under $50 each.
They're typically right at 50, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the shipping, but it's check your local science museum, check the website galileoscope.org, and get your own. And they're great little scopes. Guido Bibra is commenting, I can't remember how often Galileoscope has made its appearance on Learning Space, but it must have been a lot. Well, it is a beloved telescope, so we have to show it our love.
Yeah. Were any of them at the White House?
Twice about it, so.
Were there any at the White House, Rob? Did anybody bring a Galileoscope?
Steve and I did smuggle in Galileoscopes to the White House, so we did smuggle a couple in set them up on the south lawn there.
And you had others.
What?
A different kind of scope? Did you bring something?
My main scope I had was a Nexstar 8.
Okay.
And my Nexstar 8, actually, our graphic designer made these nice wraparounds for our scopes, so we could put the picture, these nice wraparounds with our scopes. These wraparounds actually would let us had the White House Astronomy Night logo and stuff on it, so we had little customized scopes for the star party as well. Excuse me, Astronomy Night.
That's cool.
So one of the great things about star parties is it's that chance to give people their first opportunity often to see the rings of Saturn, to see the red spot on Jupiter with their own eyes. And for many people, this is a really magical experience. And one of my great joys was in graduate school, I was part of the Wild Basin Haunted Trails, which is one of their big fundraisers they do at Halloween every year. And we actually, as part of the Haunted Trails, set up in the waiting area telescopes one year. And everyone was like, is this part of the haunting? And they didn't think Saturn was real. And once we were done convincing them that Saturn was actually real, they got really into it. And they were kind of sad when they had to get lured off to go through the rest of the haunted experience. So shout out to the possibility to set up a telescope and give your trick-or-treaters candy as well as a view of the sky if you have one. But Georgia, what's been your favorite experiences as you've showed views off through your telescope?
I'm always amazed by the number of people. It's almost every time that look at Saturn and their comment is, wow, the rings are really there, or something to that effect. Like we've photoshopped the rings in all these years on all these wonderful pictures. It's something that I guess just hits you when you see it for yourself, and the rings are just so impressive. I get that comment almost every time from people that, wow, it really has rings, or the rings are really there. And it seems like a strange comment, but I guess it just speaks to the beauty and the strangeness, in a way, of the rings. So that's what I hear a lot.
Now, Rob, you have had the opportunity to take advantage of unsuspecting people stumbling across your telescope at resorts and other locations.
Yes.
How do you guerrilla attack people with telescopes?
Tell them I have something cool to watch. I think one of my favorites just earlier this year, in April during the lunar eclipse. There was a lunar eclipse in late April, or on Easter weekend actually. But I was actually visiting Las Vegas at the time. So I went out of outside my hotel at about 3:30 in the morning. So the totality was around 4 in Las Vegas, standing outside the hotel. And as people were wandering by, I had my camera out, and they were all saying, "Hey, what are you taking pictures of?" A lot of them were thinking they're being clever and making smart remarks. And then I would point to the moon setting over the Luxor Hotel, over the giant pyramid and Sphinx of the Luxor Hotel, and freak people out who would then suddenly be extremely interested in what I was doing. So that was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite recent ones that I did. But typically, I just invite people over, and they're very, very willing to come over. You have something interesting to show them. This is Halloween, and what I've done the Halloween thing is to have this telescope set up for trick-or-treaters outside. And one of my favorite objects to show at this time of year for Halloween is NGC 457. It's an open cluster in Cassiopeia, so it's up nice and high. It's better known as the ET cluster, or the Dragonfly cluster sometimes, but I have a different name for it. I call it the Blair Witch cluster, because I think it looks like that. Remember the Blair Witch Project movie, that little stick figure that the Blair Witch left outside their tents? I think it looks a lot like that stick figure of the Blair Witch outside the tent. So I call it the Blair Witch cluster. And the really cool thing about this cluster is one of the eyes is an orange star. So it's a creepy stick figure with an orange eye. So it's perfect for Halloween.
Wow, I'm gonna have to try and see that now.
Even small telescopes and good pair of binoculars will show it up nicely.
Yeah.
So
That's here's for Halloween. Yep.
Here's a quick image of it. This is from astrobelly.info. It's also called the Owl Cluster, and I totally see the stick figure you're talking about. Although I'd say that the red star is a hand, but it's all on how you choose to
orient your stick figure. Yeah, you don't see that many stars in the regular telescope, of course.
No, that's sadly quite true. But that's a really cool idea. And
Pamela, have you ever gotten your telescope or anything out? I know you have lots of trick-or-treaters.
I do. So I have to sadly admit, I had on loan for a while this amazing Teleview telescope, and when I had that one, I lived on a cul-de-sac, and I'd often go set it up to confuse the neighborhood, and I'd always get people coming out to see what I was doing. But I unfortunately had to return that telescope, and I haven't been able to give in and buy something of lesser quality, and I can't afford a Teleview. And so I have been without a telescope for many, many years, and hoping to someday get the beloved Teleview that I loved so much, that is my own personal Teleview. So sadly, I simply scared the bejesus out of trick-or-treaters by dressing up.
One night, many years back in 2003, during that opposition of Mars, I was teaching high school at the time, and I had a telescope story from that one. I was teaching high school, and we take our kids to a leadership camp up in northern Wisconsin at the time, the first week of school, and I was going to be without my telescope during Mars opposition week. And I get to the camp up there, and one of the counselors says, "Oh, we have a telescope." And I say, "What do you have?" They say, "Oh, it's about that big around and that long." So I'm thinking 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll take that. I'll take it out tonight and look at Mars for a little while with it and stuff. And then they tell me where to pick it up. I go over there to the cabin where they were storing it, and I walk in. It's not an 8-inch next star. It's a 7-inch Quest star.
Ooh.
Yeah. Everyone knows what a 7-inch Quest star is, obviously.
Yeah. So
that's my reaction too.
This is the kind of telescope that David Levy, the famous comet and asteroid discoverer, uses for a lot of his discovery work and his variable star work, and it's considered to be the reflecting the reflecting telescope with about the best optics a reflecting telescope can have. So the Televiews are the refracting telescope. Oh my God, that's awesome. And the Quest stars are the reflecting telescope. Oh my God, that's awesome. If you combine the two of them, you basically will cause vibrations that self-destruct amateur astronomers in the know.
Yeah. Suddenly, I was not upset to be stuck in northern Wisconsin for a week.
Yeah, no problem there.
I literally, the next day, I said, I'm going to go over and talk to your business manager and make sure that this is on your insurance policy, because this is,
Yeah, I was going to say, did they know what they had? They obviously
No, they had no idea what they
had.
had. Apparently, some alumni of the camp who just donated it to them, and so they had this great scope. I had no idea what it was.
That's absolutely amazing.
But I also
And
got all my students out there looking at Mars too that week, so that was great too.
And there's really something to be said about taking advantage of what you can find, what you can beg, what you can borrow, and making the best advantage of it. And this is, I think, what all of us try to do, whether it be setting up telescopes at the local custard stand to get people engaged on a warm, sunny night, well, warm, dark night, not sunny, hopefully. And taking advantage perhaps of Halloween if you have a telescope. And I think we all know those people that when asked, why did you get involved in astronomy? It goes back to, well, when I was a kid, I used to freeze to death looking at the stars. Rob, you've probably taught more students than any of us here. Have you had those students that you know of that went on to become telescope owners and future observers that you managed to get addicted to science?
Oh boy. Unfortunately, I'm not in touch with a lot of my former students right now, so I can't really say for sure. But I sure hope there were a couple at least.
Did you ever have parents come and ask you for advice for Christmas presents for
all the time.
your
That's very common,
students to get? Yeah.
That's extremely common. I was definitely the go-to person at the schools I taught for that, and I still will get. I still occasionally will get random questions, occasionally even from a former student who tracks me down via email and asks me about a telescope. So I guess there are a few at least.
So they got that interested. Yeah, yeah.
So not everyone out there has a telescope. Not everyone out there who has a telescope knows how to use it. But the one thing that I've always found myself saying at star parties when I have that person come up to me and say, hey, I have a telescope, I don't know how to use it, or hey, I'm thinking about getting a telescope, what should I get, is, first of all, I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I have my heart set on a teleview, and I can't afford one, so I shouldn't be recommending that. I don't actually say that, I just think it very loudly. But what I always do actually say is there's this fabulous organization called the Night Sky Network, which is a network of amateur astronomers and astronomy clubs all across the United States that hold star parties on a regular basis. And most of these organizations have folks in their membership with telescopes that they just want to share with you. They just want you to come look through their eyepiece and enjoy our sky. And these local clubs are often how you can go from this is neat to let me learn more to let me learn how to use what I have or learn what I want to buy. Have you guys taken advantage of the Night Sky Network before?
Yes, I'm well familiar with them. We actually talked to them about they've developed some of their stuff. They've run it by me a couple times, so they're a great organization. They do great work.
And Georgia
and then we use some of their kits, right? So getting involved that way.
And their website is super easy to use. It's nightsky.jpl.nasa.gov. And this network is actually organized by the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. So that NASA logo up in the top, that is the funder, and the organizer happens to be the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. Now, I haven't told this website anything. It is simply looking up my IP address, and it's like, ooh, you are in Alton, Illinois. And so I can scroll through this, and it will automatically start telling me what are the clubs and events in my area? How can I get involved? I love that they have our Southern Illinois University star parties listed, our St. Louis Astronomical Society events listed, and you can go to this website and you can find out how can you get involved locally in all the things in your area.
I would also say that Astronomical Society of the Pacific has developed their Project Astro program. They developed a series of activities called Universe at Your Fingertips, and they have a DVD version of it now. It's not expensive. I think it's about $25 to $30 for a DVD, which contains 5 or 6 about hundreds of hands-on activities you can do at star parties to supplement the telescope observing. and we use those activities all the time. So that's another great resource from them.
Yeah, that used to, I don't suppose they have the print version anymore, but I have actually 2 copies of the print version, and each version is 2 huge 3-ring binders in my office. Because even back when I was teaching, sorry, oops, cat removal again, I used to use those activities all the time because they are very fun, very engaging, and of course very astronomically correct. They're just, you can have confidence, as a teacher in using those activities. And there's lots of background for teachers with each activity as well. So if you want to do a little reading and get, a better grip on the content that goes behind all of the activities, there's that too. So I found it a great teacher resource. But also works great, like Rob said, for setting out some activities on tables at a star party or an astronomy night. Works great there too.
So we've been going for about half an hour, which is our normal target length, and I think I'd like to encourage everyone to go out, and if you have a telescope, consider setting it up with your trick-or-treaters. And I may talk to Georgia after this about borrowing her telescope, because we do tend to get like 300 or 400 kids in our yard for Halloween. It's kind of crazy, but it seems like a good advantage we should take. It seems like a good opportunity we should take advantage of. What would you want to leave our audience with, Rob, as something to think about?
Look up. There's a lot of great stuff up there. Whether you have a Galileo scope or binoculars or just your eyes, look up and try and get away from lights and look. So as Yogi Berra said, you can observe a lot by watching.
And our sky is constantly changing. Georgia, what would you add?
Just to add to Rob's, it's amazing what you see when you're actually seeing the real thing. So I think sometimes people are even a little disappointed, maybe more than sometimes, when they look through a telescope and they expect the big, Hubble photograph sort of experience. But I actually don't see that as much as you might expect. And there's a lot of power in just seeing something, even if the sky's kind of icky, for yourself. It's that experience of getting out there and seeing it for yourself, seeing the real thing. And I would also add, if you do have a telescope or you are a member of a club or want to join a club, when you go out and you show these things to the public, they just love it and they're so appreciative, because how else do they get the opportunity to look through a telescope and see something out there for themselves that's not just a pretty picture?
So
Can I share one picture with you from a star party a couple weeks ago?
Yes, please do.
Let's see if I can make this work again. Let's see if I can do this, make this all work. Let's see, am I sharing the screen now?
Oh, you're sharing me. It's currently panels all the way down. Now you're sharing the correct one.
Yeah, now I'm sharing a picture. This is from Tona Otham Community College out near Sells, and one of the activities we did with the students that night was building water rockets. And at the end of the night, we actually attached glow sticks to them and launched them. So these are the arcs that you see, the arc of the water rocket against the Milky Way in the background. I took pictures of them as they launched their rockets at the end of the night. This is just doing fun stuff like that at star parties. There's a lot of fun stuff to do, so I do a lot of photography at star parties as well.
That's super cool.
I know, it's amazing.
You probably saw that when I posted originally.
I did, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, and so we're going to work on putting together show notes that include links that allow you to learn more about the White House Astronomy Night, not Star Party, to follow Rob's amazing photography. He actually is a really skilled catcher of the green flash that the sun makes at sunset and many other really cool science-related images. And we'll give you links on how to find out more about the Night Sky Network and find out about the astronomy clubs in your area. And go ahead.
I believe it's next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I have to look up the dates for sure from with the calendar, but it's when I can actually attempt to capture the green flash from the sun sets behind Peak. Happens in early November and early February from where I usually go for sunset. So I've captured it before, and I hope to get it again next week.
That is truly awesome. And I'd like to thank all of you out there who have helped make this Hangout on air and the podcast version of it that will go out later possible. This show is entirely funded through Patreon, patreon.com/learningspace. Thank you so much to all of our funders. Your efforts go into allowing Georgia and I to put together show notes, to have time off to track down speakers like Rob, and this is part of our everyday job thanks to your efforts. And I'm going to put my best effort into making sure you get the most useful show notes you can along with this bi-monthly hangout. So that's it for this week. Thank you, all of us who have joined us. I know it is quite late for those of you in Europe, and I would like to say sweet dreams to those of you who stayed up to be with us, and wherever you are in the world, have a great morning, evening, or afternoon, and may the science be with you.